another edition of the Business X Ratio, and today we are pausing a bit and taking stock of what we've actually covered in the course of the year. These episodes in 2023 were dedicated to the element of greening the agribusiness subsector, or trying to see how we can mitigate and adapt to the new reality that climate change is. Now, it's been quite an interesting journey because we began the year complaining about drought. Now, we are somewhere close to the middle of the year and it's getting too wet to a point that main roads are being cut off and the like. So anyone, even the worst pessimist, today appreciate the fact that climate change is real and we've got to do something about it. So the Business X-ray took that angle, that demeanor of actually trying to look at how best we can mitigate the impact of climate change and then adapt for the benefit of the agribusiness value chain. Now, today in the studio, I have our resident coach, Charles Ochichi, the Executive Director of Enterprise Uganda. Charles, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and I'm delighted to be on the show.
Beautiful. Again, we have a critical partner on the show, that is ABI. So from ABI, we have Richard Mwesigwa, the Sustainability Manager Specialist from ABI. Richard, you're most welcome.
Oh, thanks so much, Charles, and good afternoon, viewers. It's a pleasure being here once again.
Beautiful. Yeah. Now, we're going to have a short montage of a video that's going to combine some of the major partners that are out there, actually, partners working with ABI in this effort of trying to enforce or to practice agriculture in a way that is sensitive to the environment or the values of greening, and that will set us into the discussion of some of the arising issues, just to remind ourselves of what is key and what we need to respect. But before we go there, Charles, I want to pick your mind. A lot has happened this week, or so to speak, the past 2 weeks. And me, from where I sit, the rains have been consistent. I don't know what you see from your vantage point.
What you've just said is extremely correct. When you talk about the effect of climate change, the need for greening operations, it tended to be a very distant message. When we saw what happened in the night when the river Katonga swept away a major bridge that had been sitting there for decades, everybody confirmed that the thing can happen. When we saw islands being lifted by water and being forced to flow downstream, the message was clear. It's no longer distant. And nature has a way of communicating. It doesn't say this is a place where there might be the vulnerable poor, there might be a modern farm, a modern factory. It simply says, I'm going to tell you that I belong here and I'm going to do what I do best and reclaim what's mine. So I thought the communication from that was, it's no longer a distant message. It's no longer a message for an annual corporate plan for you to put it there. It lives with us. But most importantly, over the last 3 or so weeks, banks, through their traditional requirement through the Bank of Uganda, also had to publish their results. Again, 2 things stood out for me. One was that every communication from the board had to touch a message on environment. You are talking about profits. You are talking about how the year went. What is your message also about sustainability? About issues to do with governance? It had to come out across the board. But as that also was taking place, another area, as usual for me, from Enterprise Uganda that came out was that every other bank almost had a story about trying to go for financial inclusion. So you'd find Stanbic saying, we're working with 6,000 SACCOs. Centenary Bank tells you we're working with 3,000. DFCU tells you we're working with 1,500. And they're all saying, this is a difficult territory. We can't avoid it. we need to be in there. Associated with that communication from the banks also was the fact that many times when we say access to credit is such a big issue, the loan portfolio combined of the banking sector, if you read those annual reports, was in excess of 14 trillion.
Yeah.
Now that 14 trillion in terms of value, more than 50% went to the local Ugandans, no less than 8 trillion. Speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Many times when we talk about access to credit, it's a big issue. People are not getting money. You look at the details of the banks, 8 trillion went to the local Ugandans. It may not have been development finance, could have been short-term finance, but it went to the Ugandans. When you go to the volume of borrowers instead of the value of the loans, the volume of the borrowers could have been 90% Ugandans and 10% other investors. Again, it tells you that there is need for this platform here to borrow a lot from what's already taking place in our environment. In terms of what the banks are doing, in terms of what the key corporates in the country are doing, so that it can shape the conversation between political leadership, the local community,
Yes.
and every other common person that lives in this part of Africa.
Beautiful, beautiful, Charles. That's well put.
Yeah.
So, viewers, at this moment, we're going to take a look at that video montage, and then we delve into the discussion and what we prepared for you today in a bit.
Last year, Uganda witnessed one of the high spikes in food prices in the recent past. The rise in food prices in turn contributed to the rise in the prices of other commodities, or what economists call inflation. Today, this is above 10%. The reason for this, according to observers, was simply failed rains. Others blamed it on the changing crop growing seasons. To experts, however, these are telltale signs that climate change is here, and one of the drivers are the climate-insensitive agronomical practices.
Environmental protection, things to do with soil conservation that really help farmers to protect the environment. When it comes to the environment, it's the core that when we are teaching farmers good agronomical practices, it's not all about the coffee they are growing, but it's also about the environment in which they are growing the coffee. These are things that most farmers overlook, and in turn, they come with negative repercussions.
Since we already live with this challenge as evidenced in the frequent recurrence of extreme weather patterns among others, the discussion on adaptation to climate change has gained currency. For Uganda, which is an agro-based economy, the starting point has been the farm.
Tukozesa obusa obutagula bijimusa bizungu kubanga byonoona obutonde bw'ensi. Kubanga singa tukozesa obusa ntugenda mu maaso, emmwanyi ekola kiragala. Nekola kiragala ne tufuna bulungi embeera y'obudde, era bw'ondooza bw'ogitunuulira erabika bulungi okusinga luli twali twettanira nnyo ebijimusa bizungu, naye kati tetukyabikozesa, twabivaako. Kati engeri gye tulunda ente tukozesa busa.
Me being a pastor, and I saw what other NGOs, the way they had organized the work, I said, okay, let me use an institution where I have authority. So my work, I embedded it into reaching out to communities through the local church. I'm an evangelical Pentecostal pastor. So I used the Pentecostal network of churches to reach out to the families. So our formula is one church, one pastor, one family. So as we speak now, we have developed a network of more than 3,000 families. Now, if each one of them, you've given them an acre of coffee, so we have developed over 3,000 acres of coffee. But of course, many other farmers are far beyond 1 acre. But along this journey, we got in connection with an association called New Cafe. New Cafe, they introduced us to Abitrust some time back, because during our selling of coffee, we didn't have capital. And Abitrust facilitated the New Cafe to extend some funding facilities for us to buy farm coffee and sell it to better markets. But as of now, we are glad to come back to Abit Trust, knowing that now we heard about the green challenge. But by that time, we had come to a point of realizing that the environment is changing so rapidly. Our coffee farmers are getting stressed with drought. They don't have water. And a few years back, we had innovated our butterfly water catchment system for irrigation. Our concept has 4 major components in it. Component number 1 is to improve coffee for high yielding. But you cannot improve coffee for high yielding if your coffee can still be stressed by drought. So component number 2 was water collection, where we develop ponds which can collect water between 30 to 40,000 liters of water. So even if the farmer is not farming right at the river, he or she can still have enough water to take care of 1 to 2 acres of coffee. So component number 3 of our green challenge, we looked at the macadamia tree to provide us with the shade to protect our coffee, with a nut to turn around income, with the flower to bring about honey, and with the firewood, because when the trees will grow big, when you prune them, you cut these branches, you can always have a heap of firewood. So that releases pressure from our natural resources.
To confirm with protection of environment, we have several measures we have put in place. The first all is, let me start from the building side. The building you are seeing here, we use interlocking blocks. The interlocking blocks, they minimize the consumption of cement. Actually, we consume very less cement because the blocks are holding each other. Secondly, for the energy production, we use lights, which is solar lights, and then we also use biogas to heat, to produce heat. Because you remember when you are brooding, the chicks need some warm environment, of which we get from the biogas. Our waste, which we produce from the poultry houses, the waste we get from the grain handling facility, because as you are processing grain, you get the waste. Then there is also waste which comes from the hatchery, like dead chicks, eggshells, all those things. We put them together to produce what we call BSF larvae, black soldier fly. Black soldier fly, it is produced on anything which can decompose, including farm waste. So that farm waste is not thrown away, no. We decompose it and it gives us 2 products. The first product is high quality organic manure. The manure is used to improve the texture of the soil. There is something I wanted to mention here about black soldier fly technology in organic waste. For example, you have your cow dung. Cow dung normally takes between 6 months to 1 year to fully decompose, depending on the system you are using to compost it. But with black soldier fly, it takes 14 days to decompose it. So in terms of time, it reduces greenhouse gases by 93%.
Jaba Soil Laboratories is just a subsection of Jaba Engineering. Here, basically in Gulu, where we are right now, it is purposely for it as a soil testing lab. So here basically we do soil testing, then we also advise farmers on the right fertilizers to apply. We also advise them accordingly. Basically under this very project, we are doing some trainings on good agronomic practices and also climate smart agriculture, which basically taps on that. Now we encourage them, like for the conservation of our climate, our environment. One, we encourage them or we train them on the side effect of bush burning, tree cutting, And then we also encourage them to do the agronomic practices like mulching, digging trenches to conserve to conserve water. According to the project, we were meant to go to farmer groups of about 20 to 30 members. So, but then these services the free services is only to the group, but then the knowledge is for everyone. Ever since we started the trainings, we have seen their response because we show them what is supposed to be done. And then we show them the side effects. Like for instance, the climate smart agriculture. We show them that all this, it's being brought by us, the human beings, cutting down bush, clearing out the bushes, and then charcoal burning. All this makes the green grasses to accumulate in the air, now affecting the climate. That is now we have why we explain to them the reasons why these things are. We have seen them pick up, and we have also encouraged them. For an example, they normally have a question on, does fertilizer spoil soils? So we tell them, yes, fertilizers do spoil soils. Just like, for instance, when you're sick, then you go to the hospital, you have to test. When you have malaria +3, there is a different medication you're supposed to take. And then when you have malaria +1, others you're just given tabs, others you're put through your veins. So it's the same with soil. Some of them actually, what they know best, they know the only fertilizers is DAP.
Ankole coffee has been able to grow and become strong because of compliance with many issues. We have complied with government regulations, we have complied with government regulations on the environment, but also we have complied with government regulations on good agronomic practices. For that reason, we have been able to be awarded certifications by Uganda Coffee Development Authority for being the most compliant producer in terms of quality. We have won that award for almost 3 consecutive years. The most recent one is where our Naturals coffee, Robusta, scored 86.65%, which is the threshold for specialty Arabica coffee. As I speak now, this year we shipped more than 150 containers of coffee into the international market. When we started, we were doing ordinary coffee, but from 2009 we converted to organic, and we sold our first container in 2010. Now we are doing almost half of our coffee. We do organic coffee, and our shares are growing. And we have been able to achieve that through having partners to encourage us and support us, and we are grateful to ABI Trust for that support. They enabled us do many projects, which has made ACPC continue growing from strength to strength.
And I think that gives us an idea of the journey we've walked this year, on the trail to actually bring out the aspects of greening agribusiness, and then, of course, with the goal of ensuring that we are mitigating and adapting to this new reality called climate change. So, Richard, I want to bring you in here. Quite interesting. I don't know. I've been touched by the SPC story.
SPCU.
SPCU. Yeah. Wananwagaba. Now, many a time when we talk about climate change, most people think it's more of, just going out of your way to protect the environment. The business sense is lost in the argument to try and protect the environment. But from the Ankole cooperative story, we see that it is actually rewarding to be responding to matters climate change. I want you to put that in context, brother.
Okay. Thank you, Charles, once again. It's always a pleasure to get such a platform to share with the public out there about our work. And of course, you have been a good mouthpiece through the beginning of this year, and it has really worked, for us.
Yes.
And of course, I think I'm seated between the Charleses,
Yes.
Yeah, our resident coach, we really had time to learn from you, and we hope we shall continue learning. I think the journey has just begun, and we should be ready to learn, keep learning and keep learning, because learning, even professors, they keep learning.
Indeed.
Yeah. So the story of ACPCU is actually very interesting. And I think world over, Uganda still has that good opportunity to produce organic. And I think ACPCU, it has a broader coverage. The farmer network is quite big. We still have that opportunity that ACPU is actually trying to tap into. And having half of their coffee organic, I think it's something good. Organic products really fetch good prices out there. And I must say, farmers are testifying to this. They are getting premium prices. Their coffees are competing very well out there on the international market. And I think it's a good opportunity for us. And this speaks greatly to the responses to climate change. There are quite a lot of challenges that climate change has really, brought along. And responding in this organic kind of way of doing things is really good. ACPCU does this because of a number of certifications they try to respond to. The organic certification really is good and is helping them. The fair trade, I know they are well into that as well. And there are many other certifications that are actually helping these farmers to conform to global, to international standards, to have their products on the international market. And I must say, ABI is doing quite a lot in this space. We are promoting certification, not only for the ACPCU farmers, but to most of our implementing partners countrywide. And the rate of adoption of these certifications is really encouraging, and we are seeing more farmers being registered and conforming to these kinds of practices, and this is very good.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And maybe before I move from this, I must say that we have made quite a significant investment in this, and we are supporting, most aspects that relate to organic production. We are currently, for instance, under the Green Challenge Fund, promoting organic fertilizer production, as opposed to the artificial, fertilizers, artificial pesticides and things. So these are the kind of interventions that we are trying to put across to help these implementing partners, to help these farmers to conform to these certifications and produce, organic products, not only for coffee, but also many other products. So we have many other products which are produced organically, and they are competing very favorably on the international market. So this is our focus as we go green. These are areas we are much interested into, and I'm sure we are on the right path.
Beautiful. And I know there are quite a number of viewers watching, because we have business people actually looking for opportunity, want to better their activities, but then also, to tap into that opportunity when it presents itself. So I think I will be cheating them if I don't ask you the question of what it takes for someone to tap into, for instance, the Green Challenge Fund, and then the opportunities that you have as ABI.
Oh. The Green Challenge Fund is actually running. It was launched mid last year. And it's still running. We are actually still onboarding some of the applicants who succeeded in the first stage of appraisal. We are let me see. We actually had a total of about 8 8 successful applicants, and we are onboarding these, step by step. It takes also quite a lot to have them on board. But I must say we are running great stories out of this. The design of the Green Challenge Fund was basically a pilot. We are piloting our transition into a greener economy, and we said, instead of going full blast, trainings and designing, I think let's try something, pilot it, and see how it works. And it's giving us good learnings. We are seeing the interest of the farmers into, because we are actually responding to the challenges that are currently facing these producers, and we hope we're on the right track.
Okay.
We are also, as a build-on to the Green Challenge Fund, now planning bigger. Our next 4-year program will be more of green and promoting such interventions that promote, for instance, organic production, that promote interventions that that help farmers to be resilient, to sail through the climate change impacts.
Yes.
I think I don't need to elaborate more on climate change. Everyone now is seeing what is happening.
Yes, yes.
Yes, but we are trying to respond to the best that we can, because this is what we can do.
Yeah.
We are trying to promote this in the agribusiness sector, and this is our niche, and we hope we shall get there.
You'll get there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Charles, I want to bring you in at this point, just before we leave that story, to go to another story. When you see the Ankole Cooperative story, it is a story of a player who is ready to take on the international market on merit. And we are used to seeing groups, including cooperatives, that need some form of affirmative action, or some kind of, a charity hand to perform. I don't know how you look at that and what message we can pick for our viewers that are watching.
Very good. Listening to Richard and listening to the leadership of Ankole Cooperative, you see certain elements that are required for you to succeed in a lucrative market. One, nobody is interested in your poverty or where you came from. They are simply saying, do you have organic coffee? And they have a proper set of criteria to confirm that it's organic. So you see a person who must go there, even if you are villagers, organize yourself and have leadership. And leadership with a committed long-term view.
Yeah.
And I suspect in the criteria being used by Abby to sieve the applicants until they come down to 80. One of that is, where have you come from? Where are you going? What have you been doing? As opposed to saying, we belong to Western Uganda. The climate is good for coffee. Come pick us from our houses. You must demonstrate clarity of direction, commitment to a long-term process, and then you also see that the kind of partner that transforms people is not a partner who simply says, sorry, you've been struggling. I'm here to take over your challenges and guide you to the good market. Abby is simply saying, you're on this road. We will assist you to do all it takes to fulfill some of these certifications. But the battle and the responsibility to continue on this path is yours. In other words, when Abby has done whatever they have done, they are not going to be with Ankole Cooperative forever. Abby is like a trigger to create change. But the way you see Abby coming in, they don't come in simply by saying, you know what, let's bring you this expert, let's bring this expert. When you start exporting tomorrow, you are good to go. They actually course you to start programs that begin to develop your own setup. They moved on and they got their own value-adding equipment. When they came into the show last time, remember what the CEO said?
Yes.
He said even the bankers had doubted them. Today, bankers are saying, we're lining up to give you money. You've demonstrated that you can do this thing, and because of what you've done, Whoever assisted you to come to this stage has done a great job. We want you now. So a transformer, an entity that it triggers development, must hand the leadership for continuity of that development to the entity. And one of the ways to do that is to instill the skills program that remains an ongoing thing. Because certification and retaining a certificate is not a one-off game. You passed last year, this year is coming. You passed this year, next year is coming. You pass next year. And you know what he told us the other time? He said when the coffee that was supposed to be premium specialty coffee reaches the market, and there was a query, they trace back to see where that bag came from. And they go and check using their technology to locate what happened. And they even have technology which they can use to say, this is your garden. Can you see that you have put coffee next to cattle and you are spraying the cattle? This is spraying of the cattle is going to affect the coffee.
True.
So that kind of ownership of transformation. One, leadership. Two, long-term view. Three, resident skilling program that does not go away.
I hear you. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yes, Richard.
I have a brief rejoinder to what Charles is saying. He talks of spraying. I think as we promote these practices, we need to work hand in hand with government, and I think government needs to, you know, appreciate what we are doing, so that, of course, we are all doing this for the benefit of farmers, for the benefit of the private sector, and the rest of the world that consumes these products. Now, recently, a few months ago, when farmers were preparing to harvest some of their crops, you know, there is this government program of residual spraying, and I think it was now timing for, the time for government to do their spraying, and now also the time for these guys to prepare their harvest.
Wow.
Now, see what happened. The government comes and sprays. And
no, I hear you.
These are organic products which are targeting a certain specialty
Segment.
market out there.
I hear you.
Now, these farmers, even when they harvest, the off-taker can't buy this produce.
It's already,
because it's already contaminated.
No, I hear you.
So, see who is losing the entire chain. The farmer, because his targeted market is not ready to pick his produce.
No.
The private sector that buys this produce from the farmer
to take to that
process and take to that market. Also the market, the consumer, doesn't get this opportunity because, there is no product.
And specialty products can only be produced in a certain place.
Exactly.
Under certain conditions.
Exactly.
Quite interesting. Quite interesting, Richard, there. So we've got to have that coherence, policy speaking to activity on the ground.
Yes, there must be this coherence, and I think
that diversity of viewing a healthy community. It's not just about health. It's also about the income that they should be earning, because this residual spraying was about mosquitoes.
Exactly.
Now you're concentrating on ensuring malaria should go, and we ignore the coffee plantation.
Quite interesting, quite interesting. And I think the world we live in, I think it's Charles who you normally say, especially after COVID happened, that we can no longer do things by default.
No,
we've got to be deliberate about everything.
And that broad view is important at all times.
Beautiful. Now, I want to go back a bit, because we began, with the story of Ankole Cooperative. It's above the value chain a bit. Now, I want us to go, because some watching us, like I said at the beginning, the discussion about climate change sometimes, or previously, was looked at as an elitist one, up there. But then we realize, especially from the first story we had there, that it actually starts at the farm. Simple practices, like the size of a hole where you plant, you put that plant matters a lot. It can make a whole lot of difference. And Richard, I want to come back to you here, because you're the specialist in this area. And I want you to speak, to the farmer out there. Farmers are also classified between you have the peasant, but you also have the corporate farmer. There are many people in ties who will tell you that over the weekend they go to the farm. And they do actual
they wear boots and
planting and everything. So I want you to speak to that person of the fact that this is not only looking at the guy up there, but it starts with the person, again starting with primary production. And why it should matter.
Yeah, I think this is key. And you mentioned some of these. Simple things, pitting. You are a coffee farmer. You are a tree farmer, you know. The size of the pit you make matters a lot. And how you fill that soil is equally important. You have made that recommended pit. That pit sometimes you'll find it goes a little down to the soils that are not as fertile. So it goes beyond the loam top soil down. And of course, it means then you should make sure that you fill that plant very well with the right soil, right nutrients, you know, in addition to the pitting that you have made. But talking about broadly the climate smart agricultural practices, it's quite a whole range of practices that we are trying to promote, that we are talking about. Beyond the pitting and the planting, first of all, you also need the right plant, the right seed. We are saying climate change is affecting us through different ways. You know, the prolonged droughts you are seeing, the floods, you know, the increasing pests and diseases, you know, quite many ways that we are getting affected. So you need that seed or seedling that is tolerant to most of these challenges. You know, drought tolerant, drought resistant, pest resistant. Scientists are actually helping us a lot in this. We are no longer, and we can never remain traditional when we are trying to respond to some of these challenges. So they are helping, you know, the agricultural community, you know, coming up with those improved seed, and we are trying our best to promote these. And I think viewers out there, this is an opportunity. You can't remain as traditional, doing business as usual, you know, the way we used to do it. So you must make sure you are getting the right seed or seedling to plant. You must make sure that you plant it you plant it well. But beyond the planting and planning and all these, and also actually this brings in the season, I mean the planning, you know, the weather patterns that are changing. So you must make sure that you are right, I mean you are planting at the right time. There are sometimes these mock rains that come and you think the season has fallen. And we have had most of the farmers we support actually lose their crop because of that. Yes, so managing the seasonal patterns is key. Then looking after the soil and the plant that you have, you know, in the garden that you have planted, you know, simple things like mulching where applicable, where you can. Of course, some of these interventions are also costly. Mulching is no longer something you get anyhow, you have to buy in most cases. Then you have to look at quite a number of things to look after your crop, after your plant. Now, there comes like these perennial crops, which even when you planted well, I mean, drought will always come, okay? But also these fast-growing, you know, crops that if, for instance, sunshine, I mean, the drought is prolonged, say, for just 1 week, they will just collapse. No, so you are looking at those interventions that can help you through such circumstances. Irrigation, simple. Uganda, I think we are still one of the lucky countries globally. Egypt is, you know, struggling with our water from River Nile, and it's their main, you know, lifeline. And for us to have all the resources around Lake Victoria, all the lakes around. I mean, simple irrigation technologies, you know, can help you sail through.
To fill the gap.
Yeah, they can fill the gap. I mean, look at the dairy sector. The cattle, you know, depend on pastures and water, and you don't have water during this and you know, cattle is in the cattle corridor, the dry part of the country. So you need that source of water, and you can only manage that if you are able to pump from a distance, because it will dry and you'll not get water from the nearby area that you used to get to, and you have to go a little further. And how do you do this? You must either go horizontally very far or go deep, sink a well, pump for you to be able to feed your livestock.
There is no easy way out.
There is no easy out. But I must also say that some of these interventions are quite, everyone would want to actually adopt these, but they are quite a bit, they are quite expensive. So I think it's not only about the farmers to look into this, but I think it needs a broader kind of approach, make available some of these technologies. The government, has to come into this, the private sector, the development partners, subsidize some of these technologies so that farmers are able to acquire them,
access them
at a relatively lower or subsidized or kind of modified way of accessing them so that they can utilize them.
I hear you. Viewers, it's again the Business X Ratio, and we are looking at the element of climate change and how we can deal with it, because it's a reality now we are contending with. We can't easily reverse this unless we are deliberate, and it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And you can be part of the discussion. We have Charles in the studio, our resident coach. We have Richard from ABI, is a partner, a funder of people that actually are adapting and are into practices that are mitigating climate change. Charles, I'll move to you. I remember, even when we're having this discussion, especially those involved in primary production, the argument was that what's the level of engagement between this farmer and science, for instance, or an academic institution or a research institution for that matter. Of course, in the area of manufacturing and everything, they talk about research and development. And for big players, you realize that these take the biggest budgets. Now, the way we do agriculture, how do we come in? Because the technologies that Richard is talking about, this peasant is not going to wake up one day and, there has to be some deliberate intervention somewhere. I want you to speak to that.
Yes, we have a population that is moving away from traditional peasantry to now commercial and even sophisticated agriculture. That transition is got to be paid for by the nation, by the community, and by the household. The entire collection of the stakeholders must be on board. Having said that, I want to say that you are picking a peasant who says, I've been living my life based on income of 2 million a year, but I'm here, I've been around, and I've produced babies, and they are growing. Now to tell that person that move away from 2 million, go to 20, go to much more money per year, it takes a lot of intervention from all the other stakeholders I've mentioned. That's why I like when Richard was submitting what they are doing, he said, to change a population is not something you go overnight and then you just say, we have money, let's pour it here, and then overnight people have changed. He says, pilot. This is new. This is going to be doubted. This is going to be called expensive. But when we pilot and we speak the story of Ankole Cooperative, right now, anybody who will visit Ankole Cooperative, you want to be part of that story. It has covered all the elements of doubt, risks, and fears. The price is clearly seen there. The members are right there. You see them enjoying what they are doing. The customer is saying, remember what he said? This particular season, they could not fulfill all the orders for specialty coffee. It was all taken, and they are pending orders. Piloting, as Abi Trust or Abi Development is talking about, is a key thing. And I want to say that if we are going to get our farmers to appreciate this climate change and sustainability interventions, let us have a long-term view. The money we put into these engagements, it looks like a cost. In the end, it's actually investment in better returns, better exports, quality jobs, better forex for this country.
I hear you.
So we need to have a much deeper view to these interventions, and must have a kind of intervention that, even, if I may dare say, supersedes an election cycle. Election is typically every 5 years. So you can come up with interventions that you can assess within 5 years are people transformed. Deeper transformation tends to go beyond that. And you need to have the courage, the commitment to walk that depth of a journey.
I hear you.
Yes.
That's well put. Richard, you mentioned a very important point in your submission. And I want to... the reason why I'm saying important, because it speaks, you know, to the day-to-day realities that the farmer is contending with today, which is crop failure. As we speak now, I was speaking to one of the people who deal in beans. The market has a scarcity of beans. And the reason is simple. Too much water.
Yeah.
And the gentleman was actually telling me that now they have to rely on Tanzania, that part of northern Tanzania, for the beans. But then Katonga has happened. So it is a bit of a tricky situation. And at this moment, everyone appreciates that. And it begs a question, how do we mobilize people? How do we mobilize every Ugandan to actually come on board? I saw a pastor there, and I think he's one of the people that, you know, you support as ABI. Yes. And I want, first of all, to pick it from you, why you chose that particular person, and who else can actually board a leaf from that kind of a model, from where you sit, so that, because this is now becoming an area which needs a concerted effort.
Yeah. Thank you, Charles. I think our model at ABI, we are looking forward to reaching out to many. And our model is, we are much more interested in those beneficiaries or targeted, say, farmers who are organized, say, in cooperatives or in whatever formations that they are in, because those bring, you know, together many people. There is that cohesion that is important, and you can easily reach quite a number. It's not like we are targeting to work through faith-based institutions, for instance. That may not be the focus per se, but we are looking for, in addition to the numbers, we are looking for the innovation. What are you bringing on the table? What are you trying to promote? And we try as much as possible to support locally, you know, generated innovations, because these are easily, you know, adopted by the target beneficiaries, and they are easily sustained. So the faith-based institution actually is called Celebrate Hope Ministries. But beyond their faith-based work, they are mobilizing farmers, and they are doing very well in coffee production.
Clearly.
So while we respect the religion in all forms, and but we are targeting this grouping, which has been brought together luckily by you know, the ministries, and they are promoting coffee. They have the ability to mobilize, I think, almost everyone. They are in, you know, Chotera, Masaka area, and they have the capacity to mobilize all that region for coffee production. And they are promoting a very unique innovation for water harvesting and irrigation. Irrigating their coffee farms. They have this model where you have a water collection kind of facility within the middle of an acre, and each facility, you know, collects water that is enough to irrigate an acre.
Wow.
Okay, and
they call
we are
it the
looking-
butterfly technology.
The
It can
butterfly-
actually go into science, you know, science books.
Exactly. It's made like a butterfly. It's kind of like a trough, you know, and it's basic structure with iron roofs, and then water collects into that hole, and it's working for them.
Yeah.
And we are looking at how we can actually, scale up this. If each
Why should
farmer,
we talk about Shadufu, whatever, way of
Yes,
irrigation?
in Egypt
Let's
and
also
all that.
borrow a Ugandan version called a butterfly water irrigation.
And export it to the world.
Yeah, and get it across.
and let me tell you, it's doing wonders.
I hear
Given an opportunity, I would encourage most of the viewers to actually go there. And it's a very simple technology.
Yeah.
And it's doing wonders, and we want to see how best. And you see, water harvesting, it can be done in so many ways.
Yes.
Most of the farmers, coffee farmers are not the poor farmers we talk about. These are average farmers, 1 acre, 2 acres, 20. Although there are others who are below 1 acre, but these are farmers with iron roofed houses, and they have the capacity to tap that water from the roof and irrigate their homestead crops, even beyond, because this water can be, channeled far away into their gardens to irrigate. So these are local innovations that we are targeting, and once the technology is proven, then, and that's again why we call it the pilot. This is something that is working, you have piloted it. Why not scale it up? Why not make it available for everyone around and beyond? And we visited those farmers, and we found that many other groupings around and beyond are coming to learn. And I would encourage as much as possible people to go and learn this and other technologies, because it's not only irrigation, they're also doing biodiversity conservation. We are supporting them in beekeeping, in agroforestry. They are planting macadamia for fruit. Again, most of these interventions, even when it is tree planting, we are promoting that tree that is beneficial in many other ways. It is bringing the shade, agroforestry benefits. It's a target for a fruit, for instance. You are targeting timber and other soil, related nitrogen fixing capacity. So you're looking at that agroforestry tree species that is also beneficial in many ways to the farmer.
Beautiful.
Just before he leaves,
Yes.
I wanted to get from Richard so that the viewers can confirm this. Ankole, the farmer, the blue shoulder fly, all of them have produced amazing innovations. They are now on the ground. To what extent do we, as ABI, deliberately try to encourage visiting and watching to see what others are doing? Because NTV has just done a great thing. Many people never knew about these things. Many people never knew about the way the Ankole cooperative had gone into the specialty market, cracked it, and it had made itself win awards. And I thought during the M&E, the monitoring and evaluation activities of ABI and other partners, these are things we would want to really touch and focus on and get the country to hear about. Just wanted to know to what extent you put a deliberate budget for that. To now be a neutral budget, completely within the ABI, for the sake of all the other fellows who are not winning the whatever, the projects.
I should say that this is actually one of the ways. First of all, you have to make the innovation known out there.
Exactly. Exactly.
And this is, and somebody has to pick interest.
Correct.
Out of the so many, like these clips we showed, so many interventions, so many innovations, so many technologies. Somebody will not pick all. He will pick one or two or
closest
three.
To their heart.
Exactly, depending on the value chain they're in. Now, the next step, once you have picked interest, then it's very easy, because the contacts of these promoters are there, ABI's contacts are there.
Excellent.
We can always be reached out to help you connect some of these technologies.
Thank you.
But that said, we encourage farmer-to-farmer runnings in those areas and enterprises we support where there are opportunities for running a certain technology. We facilitate that. Okay. And the budget will always be there.
Excellent.
If it's going for a genuine cause.
That's
it's not just a trip.
Yes.
To go and
Thank you, Richard. That's a good one.
Yes.
Now, viewers, we're going to take a very short commercial break. But when we come back from this break, we'll be picking some of your questions. You've had a discussion. We are actually talking about the real issues in agribusiness. It's no longer game as usual, but after this break. Well, good afternoon, viewers, and welcome back. Once again, it's the Business X-Ray Show, and we're looking at climate change, greening, the different practices and interventions that are being done by the business community. The people, the stories that we've shared earlier on this show are of people, Ugandans, that are, into activities, to see that they adapt and mitigate the impact of climate change on agriculture and agribusiness. Now, in the studio, I have the experts to help us, contextualize this better as a prudent business strategy or practice, for those that sit within the agribusiness subsector. And before we went for the break, Charles and Richard were talking about innovations, that are trying to respond to this new reality that climate change is. And we talked about a number of things, the water harvesting and irrigation system by one of the beneficiaries in Rakai, Masaka area. That is the butterfly. And then we're talking about the black soldier fly and its contribution to, we saw the gentleman who was telling us how it decomposes cow dung much faster than the natural process, and also at the same time limiting the amount of methane released to the atmosphere. So all these are very interesting innovations. And I know as a country, we have one of the biggest challenges of unemployment, especially among the youth. And I'm talking about the educated youth. And where I see all these problems and challenges, I see an opportunity to innovate, offer a solution, and therefore have a business line and a job. So I want you to speak to that, gentlemen, as we go into the questions from the viewers. I'll start with you, Richard.
Okay. At ABI, we call it social inclusion.
Yes.
Where we are saying we shouldn't be leaving anyone behind.
Yes.
And the youth fall in that kind of bracket. Also the women and the other categories of society that may not sometimes be able on their own to pick up and adopt such innovations. So yes, these are technologies that the youth can easily run around with. Because waste, you are in, look at all agricultural crops and livestock actually, there is waste. And waste that is biodegradable, that can easily decompose. Well, we have had the tradition of using it for mulch, using it for what, but we can use it for much better benefit. The example you give of the black soldier fly, I think it's a very good learning area. And I would encourage, if we could get an opportunity for a minute to visit Hatches Limited, they are doing this. There are many other actually implementing partners that are doing this, including one Churad actually here in Namanve and others. So it's an area that the youth can pick up and first of all manage this waste. But you see, you are not just managing waste for the sake of it. You are producing feed for the livestock, like for the sake of hatches. The black soldier flies are feeding on this waste and producing the levy that is being used for feed as
very
feed in the
rich protein content.
Exactly, very rich protein content. So that such a kind of economy, the enterprise is feeding itself, from the establishment itself. That's very key. We have, the waste that we generate in Kampala. Just introduce this this fry, and you'll see wonders. You'll see wonders. Practitioners
The
in
hips
the
will disappear.
practitioners in the poultry industry will tell you that feed, I think, has constitutes the biggest cost.
Yeah.
Up
Yes.
to, I think, 7 or something like that percent. If you can be able to manage that cost by introducing that technology, I think, then the enterprise will be profitable. Many are running out of it. It's only those who are able to grow their, maize and maybe do such technologies that can. But this business of going to buy feed from some wholesaler somewhere coming to feed your poultry, I think it may not work moving forward. So yes, let's have as many as youth, as many women, as many other population categories to come in and benefit from this. And I wish we could have more and more of such platforms to keep telling the public, and also, people picking interest to come and learn. I think we shall be able to proceed.
That's a good one, because I already have someone here who is saying he's touched by the butterfly water collection, and he's saying, how can I learn more about it? And I think Richard, you can direct.
I think the answer is
is clear.
Yeah, it's clear. Just reach out to ABI or reach out directly to Celebrate Hope Ministries. And you may not be having a contact there. Just Google. Say, our contacts are always online. You just pick a number, pick an email address, and throw in an email. Make a call, and you'll be guided.
Beautiful, beautiful. So again, we're going to share with you that contact, the WhatsApp number, so that you can share through your questions for the gentleman to answer. Charles, I want you to speak on or about innovation, just briefly, for our viewers, especially the young folks.
Whenever we hear the word innovation, we westernize it. We imagine that it should come from abroad.
Yeah.
It should be read from a certain textbook written by a certain professor in London or somewhere like that. What we've just done in this country is to get working solutions that did not exist in Africa. Now they are being piloted and they are delivering amazing solutions, amazing rewards. One of the things that innovations tend to do is, one, they improve the price margin that you can get from selling your coffee or whatever product that you have. You have seen how to trap the water. You have seen how to improve the shading of the coffee plantation with the macadamia. You have seen how to manage confusion about mixing of chemicals. Those things, if they have been practiced and they have been now put into the market, now they are commercial. Let's move on from innovations and wider commercialization of what works. When we listen to the team from the black shoulder fly here, and then we're saying, here's a country with two things that are both a problem, and this thing, this technology alone just is a master bullet. We have a problem with waste. We have a problem with unemployment. The fly comes in and says, I'm fixing the waste and I'm making it easy for anybody to do it. Bang, you sorted it out. But as you are fixing it, you have just created a source of organic manure. What a beautiful combination. To what extent do we, as Africans, as Ugandans, appreciate that whatever we have started, let's dig into it. Let's make it bigger. Let's go beyond projectization of innovations, and then cross from just relying on the word innovation. It is now commercial practice. It's now best practice. Move from innovation, call it best practice. The coffee we're talking about is being promoted across the country. And coffee is transforming societies because it's an internationally consumed crop. Now that Uganda is good across the country to produce this crop, we use it with all the innovations we have tested to make the next group who are entering that area to do faster and achieve specialty crops.
I hear you.
It will fix our unemployment. It will fix our issues to do with greening the environment.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, Richard, again, I'll come back to you. This is a question from Pison Businje of Itungo Pastures. is quite grounded in that space because we've interacted with him before. So he has two questions, one for Charles and one for Richard. Now, Richard is saying, he's actually asking, why can't you consider farmers that are not in cooperatives like us, like him, and are changing lives through promoting growing of pastures and feed storage? His question is, but that's what it is. He's saying, in other words, do you have programs that look at individual players?
Can I go straight?
Please.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. What's the population of Uganda currently? You are talking of 46 or 47 million.
47, 48. Yeah.
So if you went out to reach an individual, you know, individual by individual, where would, how long would you take to reach that big number? I think the power of the masses here works for ABI. People who are organized, you know, around a certain value chain. We are talking of, you know, coffee cooperative societies. We are talking of milk, you know, cooperative societies. So you have one point of contact where almost everyone converges. So if it's a message, you know, you'll send this message to this center and it will reach thousands of farmers, thousands of members. Otherwise, then you wouldn't get the contact of each and every member to reach out. I think that model works well. But of course, if you have an innovation as an individual, you still have a way of bringing it up. And we support research, for instance. We support such innovations. And it's about the way you bring it up. How, you know, what kind of population are you trying to impact? What is your business idea, you know? What is the potential, for instance, of scaling up that innovation, or the potential for adoption, I mean. So still, such an innovation can't die out because he's an individual, you know.
Okay.
We can set it out in a number of ways and it will actually reach out to many. But the power of numbers works.
I hear you.
Discussing.
Great, great, great. Charles, he has a question for you on credit.
On credit?
Yes, yes. Because, I mean, that first submission you had on the performance of the banks and support to the private sector, his concern from the question here, I'm trying to paraphrase, is yes, accessibility is okay, but the cost of borrowing. He wants you to speak to that.
Very good. Credit is priced using what we call the interest rate. That's not the only barrier to accessing credit. There is the barrier of you also having collateral or security just in case what you are trying to do doesn't work out. There are other aspects that could be considered risk areas. Do you have the management and the capability to do what you're about to finance using a loan? How about the market aspects? To what extent are you familiar with all this in terms of competition, in terms of pricing, in terms of profit margins? All those put together constitute what it takes to give a credit, and to determine two things: the speed at which you access that loan, and number two, the price that you are going to pay to access that loan. If you address all these other elements that lower the risk of default, and then you begin to see 2-3 banks beginning to come for you, you are in the position now to negotiate. If no bank at all is looking at you and you are the one knocking at every banker's home or every banker's door, you still have a lot of credibility issues to work on. And it's not evil, because many people today who are borrowing billions started by borrowing 1 million shillings. And as they built their credibility, they outlived SACCOs, which we may be lending at 38%. Then they outlived the microfinance institution that may have been at 31%. Then they outlived the smaller credit institutions, and then now they went to the big boys that can give big money at 22%. All that is a reflection of your profile. Work on your profile to the extent that the lenders are lining up for you and you have got control on the pricing of that money. Plus the speed at which you will be given that money.
Great, great, great.
So
great.
there is nobody who can just make an announcement that from tomorrow all banks, can you give money to anybody who has asked a loan and then it happens? But we have had organizations or banks which are saying, come to us for a loan, we will give you a response within 48 hours. If you don't hear from us, come for 500,000 shillings. What they are saying is, we will quickly assess your situation and tell you these areas are not good, these ones are not good, you don't qualify, work on this. But within 12 hours, you will get that feedback. That's what they are saying. They are not saying that within 24 hours of submitting an application, you get the loan. Bank of Uganda would be saying, you gave them the loan. Did you know them? Know your customer. So the borrower must work on themselves. There are many borrowers today that Enterprise Uganda is simply saying, you are going to be buried down because too many banks want to give you money and you have lost prudence on how to assess when to say no to a loan. Many great entrepreneurs have collapsed because they became too credit worthy, and many people were reducing the speed at which they were approving, even reducing the cost of interest and removing all the typical parameters to continue being prudent.
I hear you. Moving on, I have Ngovi Kizito is asking, and this comes to you, Richard. Do you have an office in Busoga? And I think you can speak to how people in different parts of the country can reach out to ABI.
Mr. Ngovi, ABI has one office in Kampala, but we support the private sector and farmers in the entire country. Our approach is when there is a need for support, when we usually call these funding windows. We look at an area that is ripe for support based on quite a number of factors, and we run those calls for proposals, and these calls are usually open to everyone wherever they are located in the country. So whether you are in the east in Busoga or in the north or in the west, and we of course publish these in the national media platforms, the papers, the TVs, social media, all channels that are available to transmit this information. We utilize them.
I hear you.
For the purposes of reaching out to whoever is a potential benefit.
Now I have Atiku John from Hoima is saying whether apiculture is one of the areas you look at for support.
Yeah, I think I already talked to this. We are already supporting some of our IPs in apiculture, that is beekeeping. And in our broader approach of biodiversity conservation, these are good pollinators. You need bees if you want to succeed in agriculture, to pollinate your crops. So yes, it's one of the areas we support so that we complete the cycle, the ecosystem. We have to make sure that the entire ecosystem within which agriculture thrives is supported. And not only apiculture, we are also looking at wider interventions beyond agriculture, but which interventions support the agricultural systems. We are looking at watershed management, for instance. We need water to grow crops and also for livestock. We need forests, we need all sorts of natural resources that are important for agriculture. So in fact, this is very important. I must mention that we are moving beyond, the traditional, value chains. You are like supporting, say, poultry only, supporting coffee only. Coffee does not survive alone. There is that ecosystem within which coffee thrives. You need water to irrigate. You need the pollinators, so you need the bees. You need good soils. You need a range of things. So
and sometimes some shade trees here and there.
Exactly, you need shade trees. So we are talking of agroforestry. Having these trees dotted in your gardens, along the boundaries for different functions to support your agriculture. So we are broader and we want to be as inclusive as possible to.
I hear you. Now I had Adam. Adam is from Chiruhura. He's quite passionate about the milk subsector. He's saying, I would like Richard to comment about, the low milk prices amidst high cost of production, also partly conditioned by the harsh weather.
Yeah. It will basically be a comment, and I must say that ABI does not control the low or higher prices of commodities.
Yes.
These are demand and supply, driven aspects. But quite often, these fluctuations in prices are also brought about by the changes in the production cycles.
Yes.
When it is good weather and cattle are feeding well, they produce a lot of milk, and in most cases you find they are offered lower prices because there is abundance. When it's a dry season, the production lowers and the price goes up. It's an issue of, for instance, our limited ability to prolong the life cycle of some of these products. Milk is perishable. If you don't have a facility to keep it longer for days or weeks and maybe add value, instead of selling raw milk, you are looking at other products that can be gotten out of this milk, the yogurt, cheese, butter, all this, and these can stay longer on the shelves. So then you'll be able to manage the raw prices. So we need to be looking beyond selling these products in their raw form to value addition so that we manage these production and price fluctuations. But that said, I think when you have one buyer as the only offtake of your product, he will dictate the price. So if you have many practitioners in the ecosystem, you have many buyers, you have many, for instance, milk factories. Now we have many actually coming up in that very region of Chiruhura and Mbarara. And it means there will be demand for this milk, there will be some bit of competition for it, and so the price will go up. So it's, as I said, a combination of factors that are at play to determine the price of this milk, and we should be looking at all directions to see how best we can fetch better markets. Better markets.
I hear you. Now, before I bring in Charles to do the wrap-up here, Richard, I want you to, again, give us your last word on this discussion that we've had, looking at, like an overview or a digest of the climate change effort and drive, mitigation and adaptation, and what in general it means for an economy like Uganda.
Yeah, an economy like Uganda, of course, we are hardly hit by climate change, although we contribute less as a country. Agriculture is hit most, and it's our, it's the basis for, it's the best for this economy. So, as farmers, as citizens of this country, we must be able to position ourselves to live within these conditions and manage the challenges.
I hear you.
We are less prepared to do this, but we must make sure that in one way or another, look at how, what constitutes your livelihood. How is it affected? and then you must look at all possible ways of living. Of course, considering the fact that we may not now change these effects on us. I mean, global warming is all over, and we're experiencing it. So how are you positioned as a farmer, as a businessman, to say it through? I think that's the message. We must look at all possible innovations that are within our means, you know. You can't just keep lying there and saying, if crops dry, I mean, we have nothing to do. What can you do to? So that's the message I'm leaving, and we must all take action to address these challenges.
Thank you, Richard. Charles?
Very good indeed, and I'm so happy that Richard was here today for us to just review what we have shared through the greening agenda in terms of what it takes to protect our environment. And from what we have so far shared with various people who came into the studio and what AB development has been doing, a few things can be distilled out of this.
Yes.
That one, the green agenda is not something too sophisticated. We can also participate in it. There are technologies that have been tested. They are rested right now in our own communities, and they need to be spread out. They are no longer innovations. They are now practical solutions of best practice. Number two, for these things to continue to deliver transformation and for them to be absorbed faster, leadership within the communities, within the families is very key. Number three, encourage people to own up these solutions. No solution will last if it is resident in some individual somewhere. The beneficiaries must own these solutions, and once they own them, they will continue to improve and even continue to innovate. Number four, it takes a long-term view for these things to later become common practice. And whatever AB has been doing is going to continue to be part of our game, our conversation, and I'm so glad that AB brought this thing to the NTV platform. And having said about the NTV platform, one of the things that we have seen from what AB beneficiaries have done is that there are many best practices and testimonies out there that many Ugandans never knew existed right here. And people are getting rewards out of these opportunities. The story of Ankole, the story of Freddy the pastor, how people's lives are changing, and the income they are getting is phenomenal. Again, I want to conclude by saying that much as we are talking about green investment being costly, it is in the short term. In the long run, it's actually rewarding and much more remunerative than avoiding it. Just imagine now how many acres of land are being washed by Katonga.
I hear you.
So I want to say that it is something doable, and we are grateful that AB gave us opportunity to share these stories. And these stories speak to the country that has got ability to create their own solutions that can be replicated and can be used to offer jobs and can be used to offer cheaper solutions for better incomes.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Viewers, we're still having more of these stories coming. We're still talking climate change and how we can mitigate it. I've been your host, Charles Boji. I'd like to wish you a very good evening. God bless.